people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that the WBC's minimum weight champion of Germany, Tiny Tina Rupprecht, has managed to secure herself a fight before this year is out. She has already sat out most of this year.
Sporting a professional record of 11 wins, no losses with 1 draw, 3 knockouts.
Holding at least one signature win over current reigning unified minimum weight champion Gaspar some years ago. Tina beat her on points.
Tina Rupprecht is one of 3 minimum weight champions that rule the minimum weight division. There's Tina, there's Gaspar, and then there's Superbad. There's Senicia Estrada.
And it's already been a very productive year for unified minimum weight champion Gaspar. She's already seen action 3 times this year. Senicia Estrada very recently made her top-ranked ESPN debut. Now it's Tina's turn.
Now it's Tina's turn to get a fight in. Tina's turn to shake off the cobwebs and shake off the ring rust. She's going to be taking on Rocio Gasparo
of Peru, who sports a professional record of 12 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 3 knockouts.
You know how I'm always telling you there's more to boxing than what you see on paper? Well, Rocio Gaspar is proof of that. You know, she's got almost the same number of fights, just about the same number of fights as Tina Rupprecht.
She does, but her quality of competition, most of which you find in Rocio's resume, are girls with upside-down records. The vast majority of those girls she's fought in 13 professional fights had more losses than victories.
Upside-down records.
In fact, the only girls she's fought that didn't have more losses than victories are girls that were making their professional debut. And, you know, this might go on for a while. You might still have a talented young fighter, a fighter with a ceiling, though because their quality of competition is so poor, their development is arrested.
That being said, Rocio Gaspar may have the same number of professional fights that Tina Rupprecht has, but she doesn't have the same level of experience.
And the only thing really working against Tiny Tina Rupprecht in this match is ring rust. She has ring rust that she needs to shake off. She hasn't seen action since July of last year. In that way, it's been over a year, well over a year and some months since Tina Rupprecht had a fight.
It's been a while, but as far as their quality of competition, it really is night and day between Tina and Rocio.
And listen, it's not even a knock on Rocio, you know. Every fighter has those bring-along fights, those developmental fights, but a high abundance of them.
That could be due to a scarcity of resources, not being able to get top talent in the ring, not having the money to do so, though it all results in the same thing, arrested development.
In this sport, you hear it all the time. Iron sharpens iron. And if you're opposite the ring fighters that really can't give you no resistance, they don't really give you much to have to work around, you don't fully develop.
You won't. This is a big step up in class, a big step up in competition for Rocio, and all she really seems to have working for her is Tina having not fought in such a long time, having not fought in over a year's time, that she's got ring rust to shake off.
I have it on good authority that there's already been a preliminary dialogue between the Tina Rupprecht people and the Senicia Estrada people, and that they mean to stage their unification match in either the first or second quarter of next year. This fight for Tina, it's exactly what it looks like. It's a tune-up fight.
That's what it is.
I have it on good authority that they've already had that initial dialogue, that initial conversation, and that behind the scenes, the wheels may already be in motion to stage the unification match between them. All Tina's got to do is get past Rocio.
You can imagine, it would be less than ideal for Tina Rupprecht, having not fought since July of last year, to go into a fight with Senicia next year.
She needs a tune-up fight. That's how this reads. For my money, that's what this is. You may notice that The reigning unified minimum weight champion, Yocasta Valle, she's moving up in weight for her next fight, set to go down on the undercard of Prograis versus Zapata. She's going up there to light flyweight to challenge unbeaten Evelyn Bermudez for her 2 alphabet titles. The reason for this might be that she can't get Tina Rupprecht in the ring.
She's not having any luck in that department. Sinicia Estrada, she's already left the Golden Boy Promotions banner. Fat chance you get her to fight on a Golden Boy Promotions show. I don't get the sense that Yocasta wants to cross over to Top Rank and ESPN.
So, the next best thing would be to move up in weight and challenge for some alphabet titles up there where the situation is less political.
Lending credence to the notion that Tina Rupprecht is spoken for, that this Rocio Gaspar fight, it's just a tune-up fight. It's a warm-up.
It's a prelude to a Sinicia Estrada unification match, which I'm told could go down in either the first or second quarter of next year.
This fight between Tina and Rocio is set to go down December 10th. Very busy day in the sport of boxing. That's when Teofimo Lopez is supposed to fight Sendor Martin, and Terence Crawford is supposed to fight David Evanesian.
It's when Tina's supposed to be fighting Rocio, and I am going to give Rocio a closer look in the coming days.
We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
In men's super middleweight and light heavyweight news, Canelo Alvarez plans a May tune-up return, Dimitri Bivol rematch in September of next year. We talked about this in my previous video, the Dimitri Bivol Artur Beterbiev undisputed angle. We're going to talk about the Canelo angle of all of this, as Canelo tells ESPN Deportes' Salvador Rodriguez that he plans to return in May with a tune-up sort of fight, and then he wants to rematch Dimitri Bivol in September of 2023, considering Bivol not an option for May, not an option as Canelo Alvarez is coming off of wrist surgery. He needs to be 100% for that Bivol rematch, if it even happens.
And even 100% may not be enough.
Canelo Alvarez, 32 years old, is coming off of a wrist surgery following his September points win over Gennady Golovkin in their long-awaited third fight, which fizzled more than it sizzled once in the ring.
Canelo might have lost to Dimitri Bivol at light heavyweight, but he's still the reigning undisputed champion at super middleweight.
As you can imagine, for every single one of those alphabet titles, there is a mandatory challenger waiting in the queue. By way of the WBC, the winner of the upcoming Benavidez versus Plant interim title fight.
We don't even have a date for when that fight's supposed to go down. It would presumably go down in either the first or second quarter of next year.
Due to this, I don't get the sense that Canelo will face the winner of that fight in May.
What if the fight between Caleb and David happens in March? They're going to turn right around and fight Canelo in May?
No, I don't think so. That's a very short window to prepare for a fight that size. There is the winner of John Ryder versus Zach Parker, set to go down this year, before this year is out.
In previous instances, Canelo Alvarez has expressed an interest in traveling abroad to fight in front of the UK fight fans, that UK audience.
And ideally, if you're going to be fighting in the UK, it should be against the UK fighter, a homegrown fighter, a homegrown talent. The winner of Parker versus Ryder would become Canelo's mandatory challenger by way of the WBO.
And the ideal opponent to fight in front of a UK audience. Because that fight is happening this year, that opens the winner up for a fight with Canelo next year.
If the winner of the fight is John Ryder, it becomes an in-house Matchroom situation. Canelo's already doing business with Matchroom, and John Ryder, he's done plenty of business with them in the past. If he wins, it's more or less an in-house situation. I don't actually think John is going to win. I think Zach is going to knock him out. Unbeaten Zach Parker.
It's one of Frank Warren's boys.
John Ryder's fighting him on a Frank Warren show. It's a little bit more dicey. Would Zach Parker cross over to Matchroom for a one-off situation, a one-off fight, for the chance to challenge Canelo Alvarez for all the marbles, all the belts, at 168 pounds?
Or would existing promotional network issues stifle Zach's opportunity to get Canelo in the ring?
You know, we know who the clear A-side is in the situation. There's definitely no argument there. If Zach Parker wants a Canelo Alvarez fight, he must submit. He must acquiesce.
That's what he's got to do, but you have to wonder if old fish eyes Frank Warren won't make things dicey, murky, difficult? You have to wonder.
In what is an otherwise run-of-the-mill situation to where there's a clear A side, a clear B side, and
What stands out the most about this is that if Canelo Alvarez isn't fighting Dimitri Bivol in May, Dimitri's got to find something to do, presumably the undisputed title fight with the winner of Better Be versus Yard.
if he has luck in the undisputed department, if talks ensue for a Bivol versus Better Beef fight, he may not be available for Canelo Alvarez to fight him in September.
All depends on what he has to do to get Hector in the ring.
Rather, what he has to agree to.
Hector is supposed to return to action in, the first quarter of next year, and then he's set to observe Ramadan.
Ramadan lasts about a month, from the end of March to the end of April.
It's essentially saying that Hector Better Beef would not become available for Dimitri Bivol to fight him until the summer months roll around. Now, while he's observing Ramadan, they can attempt to negotiate the fight between them, Hector's people and Dimitri's people.
Simply put, Dimitri Bivol does not seem particularly fascinated by the idea of having Canelo dictate where Dimitri Bivol's career goes. He's not chasing that anymore. He chased it once, he got it, and he won. Still, a potential Canelo-level payday is not a bad second option for someone to keep in the pocket.
But rest assured, it is a second option, because if Canelo's fighting in a tune-up fight in May, he's not fighting Dimitri Bivol.
At which point, Dimitri might look to make the undisputed title fight with Hector.
And who knows what he may have to agree to get him in the ring.
A multi-fight deal with Top Rank, perhaps. A multi-fight deal with Top Rank would take him out of the running for a second Canelo Alvarez fight.
It might. Canelo Alvarez himself in May, he may so decide to take on at least one of his mandatory challengers. Don't think it'll be the winner of Benavidez versus Plant, though the winner of Parker versus Ryder is a possibility.
In the United Kingdom, and yet another possibility for Canelo Alvarez's May return is number 1 ranked William Skull of Cuba by way of the IBF. He is the IBF's highest ranked contender in their super middleweight rank standings.
Flying largely under the radar and sporting a professional record of 20 wins, no losses, and no draws with 9 knockouts, having last seen action earlier this year.
Earlier this month, on the 12th, that was last week, William Skull has seen action 2 times, at least 2 times this year, 2 times
2 times this year, 3 times last year. Nice steady schedule of activity for this guy.
Canelo is the reigning IBF super middleweight champion. Is William Skull in the running for a Canelo Alvarez fight? Could we see Canelo tune up with this guy?
You never really know. The moral of the story here is that if Canelo's tuning up in May with somebody else, whoever it is, he's not fighting Dimitri.
And if he's not fighting Dimitri, Dimitri's going to have to find something else to do. If that something else ends up being the undisputed title fight with Hector, well, that could be a multi-fight engagement to whiz. Maybe Dimitri ain't available for Canelo in September. And finally, in men's lightweight news, another look at what's supposed to be the Gervonta Davis versus Hector Garcia fight early next year, ahead of what's supposed to be the Ryan Garcia fight later on in the year, in April.
Very convenient that one announcement came before the other, right before the other. The announcement for the Ryan Garcia fight, the proposed fight that at the time it was announced wasn't even signed.
At the time those announcements were made, where they were in negotiations, reportedly, they had not even exchanged contracts yet. But that announcement came before this one, even though this is the fight that's signed. This is the fight that is signed, sealed, and delivered. The in-house fight between Hector Garcia and Gervonta Davis, which indirectly benefits from the premature announcement of the Ryan Garcia fight. And it is a premature announcement.
It's premature because those contracts haven't been signed. The outcome of this fight hasn't been decided. So announcing that fight ahead of this one, that's premature.
This fight, as a standalone fight, without the announcement of a potential Ryan Garcia fight later on next year, is this fight by itself pay-per-view worthy? Without that announcement,
without the Ryan Garcia announcement to complement it, without that to look forward to, is this fight by itself pay-per-view worthy.
They've been running this gimmick with Gervonta Davis for a while now. You know, was the Rolly Romero fight pay-per-view worthy? What did that do at the box office? And what about the Isaac Cruz fight? Was that pay-per-view worthy?
For God's sake, those weren't even champions. And neither is Hector Garcia. Not at lightweight, where this contest is set to take place. If he's a champion anywhere, it's at 130 pounds, and Gervonta Davis ain't fighting him there.
He's bringing him up from 130 up to 135. In truth, I don't even think this is a bad fight. I don't think it's a bad fight, but that doesn't mean it's a pay-per-view worthy fight. I mean, Navarrete versus Valdez ain't a bad fight. Navarrete versus Pitufo Diaz wasn't a bad fight. Stevenson versus Valdez.
Better be versus Smith.
Bivol versus Ramirez.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, we get better fights than this one all the time without the additional cover charge, without box office prices. So for what reason exactly are you supposed to pay extra to see Gervonta Davis fight this guy?
What exactly is supposed to make this fight better than those fights? What warrants the $80 cover charge? What exactly? Oftentimes, you ask this question, not exclusive to Gervonta Davis's pay-per-views, but many of the PBC's pay-per-views in general, and the answer that you get is, well, if you don't like it, don't buy it.
That's not an answer.
That doesn't actually address the question. The question is, for what reason are you supposed to pay more to see this?
What exactly made Davis versus Romero a pay-per-view fight?
There are those in the industry who hope to redefine what a box office fight is, what a box office fight should be, for personal gain, of course, because ideally, at least historically, box office fights and fights at the box office were really exclusively fights that fans were clamoring for. Big fights that would require big purses, but you knew that the audience was there. You knew who to market the fight to.
Because there was actually a demand for those fights. Fights like Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad, Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield.
There are two fights. Fights like Mayweather versus De La Hoya, Mayweather versus Alvarez, Mayweather versus Cotto, Pacquiao. There was a demand for these fights.
Certainly more of a demand for those fights than this fight. Who the hell was demanding this?
Not even telling you it's a bad fight. It's a mildly intriguing fight that by all rights belongs on regular Showtime.
Not pay-per-view.
The idea that Gervonta Davis is a box office star just because Leonard and Floyd say so, we see what his numbers are.
He can do a decent gait. He can do a decent gait every now and again.
He can draw a bit. I don't take that away from him, but the idea that all of his fights belong on pay-per-view just because Leonard and Floyd say so, well,
He's already been on pay-per-view 4 times. He still can't crack 300,000 buys.
there's a part of me that almost feels hoodwinked by the announcement of the Garcia fight, the Ryan Garcia fight, not the Hector Garcia fight, the fact that that announcement came right before this one as if to help sell this fight with the promise of that fight.
Fucking con artist.
Why? Why should anyone pay $80 to see this when they get the same or better fights without the additional cover charge? Why?
Yeah, this kid might be Floyd Mayweather's fighter, but he's not doing what Floyd Mayweather was doing, fighting in the kind of fights that Floyd Mayweather was fighting in.
He isn't. We're supposed to pretend that he is because he's nursing a secondary title?
Why don't you shoot for the real one?
A prelude to a Ryan Garcia fight, and I will admit that that is a commercially viable fight, certainly more so than this one. But when it comes to this fight,
Why is this on pay-per-view?
what makes this fight so fucking special?
Why is this on pay-per-view?